I'm very proud to have with us, as our first presenter, a man who has devoted his life to an oath he swore to protect and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic. His name is Lieutenant General Jerry Boykin. He has 36 years of distinguished service in the United States Army, rising to the rank, of course, of a lieutenant general, but also as the commander of some of the most storied units in the United States military, including the Delta Force, which he not only was a founding member of, but also became its commander. General Boykin worked in a variety of other capacities in the intelligence community, notably serving for a time as the Deputy Undersecretary of Defense for Intelligence. He knows the enemies we face. He has confronted them on the battlefield in the kinetic sense, but he's also been extraordinarily effective in his present role as the Executive Vice President of the Family Research Council, dealing with the threats posed to his organization very literally by groups like the Southern Poverty Law Center and the Council on American Islamic Relations. General Boykin, welcome. It's so good to have you with us. Thank you for being with us to take part in this Truth Squad on CAIR and the SPLC.
Well, I consider it a privilege to be able to be with you today in this, what I consider to be a very important moment here as we really sort of expose the truth about both CAIR and the Southern Poverty Law Center. As you said, Frank, I'm the Executive Vice President of the Family Research Council, and last week, today, 1 week ago today, we paused here in the lobby of the Family Research Council and brought all our employees together, and we really remembered a day 7 years ago when a man named Floyd Lee Corkins walked into our lobby with a 9mm pistol, 100 rounds of ammunition, and 15 Chick-fil-A sandwiches, and shot our building manager, Leo Johnson. Now, thank God that he did not kill Leo, but he shot him through the arm, and Leo has been on really a 7-year recovery process for him. So it was a very bad injury that he received, but he's done well with it. But when asked why he shot Leo and what his intentions were, he said he came here to kill as many of us as possible because we were a hate group. And he had found us on the website of the Southern Poverty Law Center listed as a hate group, an anti-gay, anti-LGBT hate group. Well, first of all, let me say we're not. But he came into our building because Southern Poverty Law Center had listed us as a hate group, and that hate list that is maintained by the Southern Poverty Law Center is totally illegitimate. Now, all you have to do is look at Southern Poverty Law Center objectively, and you'll see that just within the last few weeks, their world has been falling apart because the top 3 people in Southern Poverty Law Center have been forced to step down, including the founder, Morris Dees, who founded this in 1971 as a, quote, civil rights organization. Because of complaints from people within Southern Poverty Law Center, employees, about incredible racism and incredible sexism, Southern Poverty Law Center has been exposed for what they really are. Now let me tell you what one of their own employees says, and I'd like to read this. It's a guy named Bob Moser in the New Yorker. He said, we were part of the scam and we knew it. What scam? It's a money-raising scam. Today, they have $149 million in offshore accounts, and their total assets are almost $500 million. And this is a 501c3 organization. This is a tax-exempt organization. Keep that in mind. And that's what Morris Dees was all about until he was forced to step down. It's all about money. It is all about money. So this hate list has all been about money. And they are a shill for the left, for the ultra-left, as a matter of fact. And they are an arm of the left that has been used to push every liberal cause. And how do you get on a hate list? You can either espouse Christian views or conservative views, and if you're having any impact at all within our society, you're going to wind up on that hate list. Frank and the Center for Security Policy are on it because of their conservative views on national security and issues that really matter to us as a nation. The other thing is, look at this hate list. This hate list is illegitimate. They just on their own decided that they would put together a hate list, but there is no authority for them to do that, and there's no backing. The only thing that gives them any credibility at all is when the media or the U.S. government uses that hate list for their own purposes, or big tech companies, which has occurred in the past. Now the government has backed away from them. And many of the big companies that have used those hate lists have backed away from them too. But you still have elements of the media that are still referring to this hate list and not understanding that what they're doing is they are reinforcing a hate list that is produced by an organization that was convicted in Washington, D.C. of hate crimes, federal hate crimes. Yes, in Washington, D.C. That man that came in our building and shot Leo Johnson was convicted of a hate crime. These people are committing domestic terrorism. Now, they list people because they are conservative, because they're Christian. But what they also do is this is a phony list because they'll take one organization that might have chapters in different cities and they will count each one of those chapters as a separate organization. It's really bizarre. But let me tell you who is not on this hate list. None of the Islamic hate groups are on the list. None of them. None of the Islamic hate groups, like the Students for Justice in Palestine or Hamas, which is recognized as a terrorist organization. They're not on the hate list. Groups that call for actual violence, like Black Lives Matter, like Antifa, they're not on the hate list. And you ask yourself why. And then finally, one of their own, Heidi Barrick, has just come out recently and admitted, I didn't even know that she realized what she was saying, but she's essentially admitted that this hate map is bogus because they don't know how many hate groups there are. They don't have a criteria for establishing who's a hate group or who's a hate monger. There is no legitimacy to this whatsoever, but it's all about money and they've got plenty of it. So if we get a chance to talk about this more, Frank, I'd be glad to add some additional comments. I could talk for the next couple of hours about who these people are.
Yeah. General Boykin, thank you. You've introduced a lot of very important subjects here. Notably, when you talk about the Southern Poverty Law Center, it's really kind of an enabler of the terrorists that we're now confronting, hate groups among them. And interestingly enough, you mentioned Hamas is not on the Southern Poverty Law Center's list. That's not an accident, I suspect, because in a publication that the Center for Security Policy did, which is available as are all of our books at securefreedom.org, we took out of a very important criminal prosecution, the Holy Land Foundation trial back in 2008, the information that the FBI produced that showed, as a result of wiretaps of the organizational meeting of the Southern Poverty Law Center's partners in the Council on American Islamic Relations, that it was founded by Hamas. Literally founded by what is now a designated terrorist organization. Why? To create a political warfare instrument for Hamas and a fundraising mechanism, hence the title. CAIR is Hamas. The other thing that we also want to make sure everyone is aware of, and General, you're very familiar with this, Hamas, of course, is the Muslim Brotherhood's Palestinian franchise. And we happen to have another document that was introduced into the evidence of the Holy Land Foundation trial called the Explanatory Memorandum on the general strategic goal of the group, namely the Muslim Brotherhood in America. This document, which is a memorandum that was written by a very senior Muslim brother back to the mothership in Egypt in 1991, describes the mission of the Muslim Brotherhood. That would be the Council on American Islamic Relations and myriad other front groups, is, quote, destroying Western civilization from within by our hands, the non-Muslims in other words, and the hands of the believers, so that Allah's religion is made victorious over all other religions.